I lift a pile of clothes off the floor and jump in shock when a bug scuttles out. I narrow my eyes and track it carefully. It can't be. I chew my lip. I don't want to report it. I know what it'll mean. Should I ask Sarah for advice? No. I've lost my job and Sarah's due in a month and a half. There's only one right course of action. I text Sarah and tell her not to come home, that I've seen a cicada belly. After that I report the sighting, and an hour later a group in full-on biohazard getup is patrolling the apartment complex, knocking on everyone's doors. I was right. The complex had cicada bellies. The suits follow standard procedure and quarantine the entire apartment complex. Every possible way in is completely sealed, even the windows. Nothing is allowed out, and only essentials are allowed inside. Sarah is lucky enough to be at her parents' house, and after an inspection was allowed to stay there. Everyone inside the complex is sealed inside. Cicada bellies obey a simple rule: eat or be eaten. The suits tell us they'd check in on us every couple weeks, until either they were gone or we were. That crushing, pesticides, even fire would stun them for long enough to plop them in your mouth. They strongly warned us against trying to eat them while they were still alive. At first my neighbors tried to have some community meetings and planning sessions. Then we had our first death. Mr. and Mrs. Miller were an elderly couple who lived a floor below me. They didn't check in for a couple days, so the landlord opened the door to their room. The floor was carpeted in cicada bellies. As soon as they were disturbed, they released an awful wail, the sound of thousands of tiny limbs rubbing together as they quickly scurried into the cracks and corners of the hall, a torrent of infestation. All that was left of the Millers was a pile of clothes and dentures. Otherwise, the first week wasn't that bad. I had plenty of food and could at least have video calls with my wife and family. I kept finding more and more of the cicada bellies and would toss them in the largest cooking pot I had. By the second week, I was really stretching my remaining food supplies. The dozens of bugs I had tossed in my pot had eaten each other, and there were only 5 or so left, each the size of my fist. I'd found many more, and already filled up nearly every pot and kitchen container in the apartment. If they hadn't sealed the window, I'd be trying to figure out how to climb down from the 5th floor. For now, the worst part is the boredom. Sarah hasn't been calling as often, so I just watch TV, or my captured cicada bellies squirm all over each other, a writing mass of mandibles and claws. Very soon I'll be desperate enough to have to eat that. I check the cabinets. Slim pickings. It's time for a test run. I stare into the cooking pot. They're repulsive. Bile rises in the back of my throat. I turn away and take some deep breaths. I turn the stovetop on underneath the bugs. After a few minutes, they begin scuttling about frantically. I watch as their shells slowly swell and pop. I lift the lid and the smell is vile. Rotting eggs mixed with expired milk. I clamp the lid back shut and throw up all over the floor. I leave the stove running while I clean everything up. I turn off the stove and look at their charred corpses. After about 10 minutes, they start twitching and break apart. Now there's about 10 smaller bugs who quickly begin cannibalizing the rest of the remains of the larger ones. I want to throw up, but there's nothing left. I'm too nauseous to even eat. I collapse in the hammock I've been sleeping in and try to doze through the rest of the day. The next morning the suits check on us. They call my cell and ask a series of questions. How much food do you have left? Have you seen any cicada bellies? And so on. I audibly gag when they ask, how many have you eaten? You'll need to eat some, sir, they tell me. We can recommend some recipes if you're having trouble. I've seen all the recipes. I've read the tips online. Only one stood out to me. They taste better when you're starving. That's what I'm waiting for. When there's nothing left but spices, and I'm delirious with hunger. 2 more weeks pass, and I'm on my last ramen cup. Each of my storage containers now only contain a single gigantic cicada belly. The suits call again, but this time I just ignore their questions. Look, I've captured them, a bunch of them. I've probably got like 20 pounds of bugs here. Isn't that enough? Do I really have to eat them? Sir, we're sorry, but it's a safety concern. We aren't allowed to take more than 1 specimen out of the building. But they're so big now, I whisper. I'm not even sure I can kill them. That's why we advise against capturing them. They should really be eaten as soon as they're captured. I look at the enormous face in the cooking pot. It stares back with its compound eyes and clicking mandibles. Its antennae are pressed against the taped-on glass lid, and it slowly brings one of its own limbs up to its mouth and begins chewing. Sir, the voice on the phone startles me, however, intimidating it may seem to eat them, I promise it will be much worse to be eaten by them. I hang up without answering. Eventually, I do feel that desperate. My body aches, my shrunken stomach rattles around my protruding ribs. I don't know how long it's been since I've had solid food. It's hard to keep track of time anymore. I don't even remember how long it's been since Sarah stopped calling. She said it was too stressful to talk to me. All that is standing between me and freedom is 20 pounds of food. I don't care about the smell anymore. I need to eat something. I turn the heat up on the pot and watch as those cold, calculating I slowly sizzle and crack. As soon as it stops moving, I cut the tape and lift the lid to throw in some oil and spices. It immediately lashes out and tries to escape. I throw all my weight on the lid and slam it back shut. I wait as long as I can until my skin blisters from the heat before stepping back. After a couple more minutes, I throw in the spices and olive oil. It still smells rank, but starvation adds its own flavor. I eat from the pot, reaching in a fork, tearing upon its shell, and scooping up a bite of the runny, fluffy innards. It tastes like pickled eggs, but it's something. I stuff my belly and seal the lid back shut. Half a pound down, 19 to go. The first dozen meals aren't that bad. Probably not too different from eating rotting lobster. Then I run out of spices. No more rosemary and olive oil to cover the overwhelming stench of decay. I can't possibly eat another bite, but the suits said they'd take one. All I need to do is force them to eat each other until there's one left and they'll let me go. After some searching, I find a plastic bin full of Christmas decorations. I dump them all over my bed. It's not like I use it anymore. Looking at the dozen-odd pots and containers I've trapped them in, I take a deep, settling breeze. I can do this. I turn on all 4 burners and start with the pots. As soon as they are nice and crispy, I dump them into the bin and load more into the pots. I have some close calls, but soon I'm left with a bin full of vile-smelling fried bugs. I text Sarah the good news. She doesn't respond. I try calling the suits back. After a round of redirects and holding, I get to talk to someone. I'm all that's left, and there's only one cicada belly. Are you sure? Of course. I fried up several pounds of M and threw them in a plastic bin. Oh, okay. Sir, when was the last time you left your apartment? I start taping the edges of the box. What? Is that some kind of joke? You've kept us trapped in here for months. Sir, please just look out the peephole of your apartment door. I use an entire roll of tape sealing the bin and move to the door. I look out. I can't see anything. I think someone turned off the hallway lights. Can you please open the door to confirm? They sound nervous. I open the door with a grunt of effort and see why it's so dark. The walls, floors, ceilings are covered in cicada bellies. A writhing mass of wriggling bugs that cover every inch of the hallway. Aye. Sir, how many are out there? Aye. We find that when prepared in certain ways, they'll release a scent that scares away the smaller ones. That may be why you didn't see any lately. My mouth drops open. My heart feels like it's going to tear through my chest. Sir, can you please confirm if any of them have grown? My eyes widen. It's standing. I watch as a large figure shambles down the hall, scooping up handfuls of the smaller ones and tossing them down its open gullet. A presence rushes across my skin as it finally notices me. It lets out a haunting wail and begins charging towards me. I slam the door shut. I hear the voice on the phone yell out some codes and numbers in the background. It begins pounding on the door as I feebly try to hold it shut. What do I do? I scream into the phone. The call drops and I feel the door splinter. My eyes dart wildly around the kitchen as I throw my weight against the door. It finally breaks through and I'm tossed to the ground. I turn around and watch as it drags itself through the hole in the door, gouging out large chunks of its shell in the process. It's eat or be eaten. As it flops onto the floor in front of me, I dive on top of it and start shoving my hands into the injured parts of its shell, pulling out its gooey innards and shoving them into my mouth. Eat or be eaten. It tastes so much better raw. I should have done this in the first place. I gorge myself on it, hollowing out its thorax. I only stop when I'm simply too full to take another bite. I lick the juices off my lips. I am going to survive. More might be out there, but apparently, I can keep them out by just frying them. I lay there for a minute, but as I start to get up, I feel it. My insides are roiling. It's like the worst case of food poisoning I've ever had. As I clutch my stomach, I feel something moving. A lot of somethings. They're feasting. I scramble for a knife as waves of overwhelming pain rock through me. There's only one way out of this.